meeting to order. Let's stand and do roll call and then. Okay.
Michelle can call names for the roll call.
James Sutton. Present. Peter Allen.
Present.
Cynthia Nagy. Present. Stephen Hutton present. Stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And are there any special presentations other than the action item?
Vice Chair, there is nothing for special presentations tonight. If there are public communications from the floor, it would be on items that are not on the agenda in this next section.
Are there any special announcements for the floor?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Brian McCarthy. I'm a city council member, but I'm speaking just on my own behalf tonight. I wanted to speak to you because I have some concerns about the Recreation Services Commission and the Public Works Commission and kind of how we're dealing with our parks. There's a lot going on in our parks, the few that we have, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of public input and process for those things that are going on. And so through the chair, I'd like to suggest to commissioners and staff that's in the room that we really take a look at the structure of our commissions. Our code currently says that the Public Works Commission is responsible for parks, the Recreation Services Commission responsible for the kind of the programming of those parks. But I'm not sure that that's really the best way to do things. I haven't seen in the last 3 or 4 years a lot of commission discussion about things that are happening in the parks relative, especially to Loch Padden. And I'm just wondering how as a city we can kind of take a look at that and help identify what these parks, what the long-term vision of some of these parks are and how we're meeting that vision through the things that are happening in those parks. And I think it kind of relates to some of the things that we're going to be discussing today as we look at the vision of our community, what we want people to perceive some of these spaces as, what does it represent, right? And so this is something that I've kind of spoke publicly about for many years before I was on the council. I still believe it today as much as I did 3 or 4 years ago. I just think that more can be done. We're about to bring on 3 or 4 more parks, right? And so, we've got Hilltop, we've got Dunes Park, we've got Sea Haven Park. And if we're struggling now to kind of have a long-term vision of what all those entities look like, I fear that those troubles are going to persist into the future. So I just kind of wanted to make that public comment. Like I said, I've said some of these things publicly in the past, but I want to start getting more vocal and about my opinions. And I welcome any discussion either here or offline. And I appreciate all that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just a note on that. I've been on the Public Works for a couple terms now. And before the lockdown, before COVID, we spent a lot of time working on the planning of the parks, and that hasn't all. And so now I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, most of them are in the design stage, even though they're still coming open for public comment, like the sports park. It's morphed a little since its original concept. But the original concept as of how many years ago is that? 4 years ago, maybe before the lockdown, was specifically a sports park. And then Sea Haven was specifically for larger, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, this is an agendized item, but I think it's more along the lines of we've been bringing things to the Public Works Commission that are already funded projects that are coming through for development as a park. It sounds like we may need to maybe a higher level look at our park space in general, from a parks master plan standpoint. I don't know if that's kind of, kind of some of the concern being raised. So,
I think that we lost some time, so I have to kind of regain the messaging maybe. Any other comments from the floor? Okay, then I'd like to go on to the next consent agenda, the approval of the minutes. Has everyone taken a look at, start with April 20th meeting minutes? Any corrections?
No corrections from Steve Rowland.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Steve Rowland approve.
And a second? Okay, the minutes of April 20th are approved. Any comments on June 15 meeting minutes?
No comments, Steve Rowland approve.
no comments.
They're very, very complete. They're wonderful. We never had meeting minutes like this before she came on. We never had minutes, in fact. I have never seen them otherwise. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Approve, Steve Rowland.
Second.
Oh, I'm supposed to do all in favor, huh?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. And the next is the action item, receiving the presentation on downtown landscaping, streetscape diet, road diet, and providing input from, let's see. Who's making the presentation on this?
I will cover that, and I will do a kind of a brief introduction here. This item that's before you tonight, commissioners, is kind of it's a focused subset of the downtown vitalization specific plan, which has been going on for a number of years with getting input from the community currently underway. There are certain aspects that are germane to this Public Works Commission. Tonight, you're going to see presentations on improvements within the right of way. And so there are going to be presentations on the landscaping, not only in the medians, but just in general for the downtown. And then also we're going to go a little bit in depth on the handling of traffic in the downtown, different ways of looking at that. What we currently have is we have Del Monte Boulevard, which was constructed by the state of California to operate as a highway. And it has been carrying traffic for quite a few years. A lot of it is traffic. One of the connections between the Salinas Valley and the Monterey Peninsula, we have Del Monte Boulevard and Reservation helps make that connection. We have Imogen Parkway, and then we have Highway 68 are kind of the main connections. And so, having that much regional traffic go through the downtown, that volume isn't necessarily conducive to a downtown feel, downtown environment. So some of the presentation tonight is going to show you what can be done, different ways of handling the traffic. And, for commissioners' input on traffic operations and, what is the right balance between cars, bicycles, and pedestrians in a downtown. And we're going to go pretty in depth in landscaping, both hardscape and planting, downtown street features. I'll call them furniture like benches and stuff like that contribute to the downtown space where the public gathers and gives them a sense of something more than just passing through, a place where they can interact with the businesses and the community in the downtown. And so I think, any input from the commissioners as to, appropriateness, accessibility within the downtown for all abilities, all modes of travel, and any input on maintenance and long-term durability and maintenance of the downtown features that are going to be presented. And we're going to have, first up is Bianca Koenig is landscape architect with BEK Collective. And she's going to go through the landscaping portions, the streetscape portions of it. But she will also cover input that we've already received from the public. We've already been at the farmers market to get input from the public. There was an online survey that almost 100 people participated in. And then there was another opportunity here at the council chambers following the farmers market for input. And then we have another opportunity tonight for the public and the commission to provide input. Your input and the input from the public tonight will be incorporated into a similar presentation and bringing forward the information along with yours to the city council meeting. We're planning on bringing this to the city council on December 5th for the city council and the public to weigh in on that, all the input that we've had up till that point. And after Bianca makes her presentation, then we'll turn it over to Derek Wu. And he's with Kimley Horn, and they've done the traffic modeling for the road diet and looking at the options for intersection control, whether that be traffic signals or roundabouts. And they've modeled, and you'll be able to see simulations of how the traffic flows. Not today. We were looking at a point in the future of 2040 with traffic projections due to growth development that's planned in the Monterey Peninsula, Monterey Bay area, as well as Marina. So we're looking at that growth in the future and looking at the capacity from that standpoint. So not so much today. We've got a pretty good sense that it would handle it today, but we want to make sure that if we put a street on a road diet, that at some point in the future, we're not going to have a problem and have to reverse that just to handle the traffic. And between the landscape presentation and the traffic presentation, it's the option of the commission if you want to take a break from the presentation there and do some question and answer and provide input on that first part of the presentation, because there's going to be a lot of material presented here tonight, and then you could go into the traffic portion, but that will be up to the wish of the commission and how you want to be able to, when you want to ask questions, and how you want to be able to provide input. So I think with that, if there are any questions before we kick it off. Yes.
I have a question. It's mentioned that there's a $1.7 million regional surface transportation improvement program funding for improvement in the intersection of Del Monte Boulevard and Reservation Road. Is that a separate issue than from the presentation that we're handling here? And
no, we're not treating it as a separate issue. We're looking at that, and as this design comes forward for Del Monte, we'll be looking at incorporating those improvements to that intersection as well. So any comments on that is germane tonight as well.
okay, thank you for the clarity.
And with that, I'll ask Bianca Koenig to come up and do the first presentation.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, commissioners and members of the public this evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share our time and energy together this evening. Thank you, Brian, for walking us through our plan for this evening. That's my first slide. Happy to present our team, BEK Collective, support from Wallace Group and Kimley Horn on traffic. Let's see if I'm doing this right. Or I could do next, we can talk about it. Michelle and I could work together. We can do this.
Just say next slide.
Okay, we can do that. All right, so the city of Marina has a lot going on right now. There are several projects, so just wanted to do a quick overview. There's the 2045 Marina General Plan, which is looking at the whole city long-term, 20 years into the future. What will it look and feel like? There's the Downtown Vitalization Specific Plan, which is nearly ready for approval. And tonight we're looking at the Del Monte medians and downtown Marina streetscape. So that's that little orange slice on Del Monte from approximately Ryan Dollar to Reservation Road. Next slide. I have another. Oh, there we
We won't get through.
This is a test. Oh, it might be the same problem. No, just kidding. Gotta use that off switch. Oh wait, it's green. Okay. Okay, so again, looking big picture and starting on this work on the Del Monte Boulevard medians, I mean, one option is just to go there and plant the medians, but that's not what we wanted to do here. We wanted to look at the context, look at the overall goals of the community and the projects that are working concurrently. And so from the Downtown Vitalization Specific Plan, the goal is essentially to transform Central Marina into a unique, vibrant, and pedestrian-friendly downtown. And you could see some existing photos to the right on that slide. And so we have loads of potential and opportunity here. Also, in coordination with the research and reviewing the work that is already being progressed by the city, as Brian mentioned, we had some community outreach events. The farmers market was a great time to connect with members of the community one-on-one, have some in-depth conversations on their thoughts and ideas and feelings about the city of Marina. On Wednesday evening, so trying to give a couple options, weekend, weekday, to reach as many people as we could. But we got over 40 participants at the farmers market and about 10 at the city hall. Middle of the week evening, it was a tough one. At the same time, we had the online survey open from October 15th to October 29th, where we received, as Brian mentioned, nearly 100 responses. A couple of my favorite findings from our outreach at the farmers market, I asked a woman from the garden club, "What is Marina to you?" in 3 words. And her answer was, "We love our home." And she didn't want to take it down to 3 words, which I think makes it more important because the we and the our and the love and the home, they're all so important. And then at the city hall meeting here in the chambers, one of the quotes was, and it's probably impossible to read on that little yellow Post-it, but Marina feels like a sweet, culturally and ethnically diverse community on the brink of great change. So a lot of potential. We do have a quick summary on the demographics of folks who participated in the online survey. So what we found were there are essentially majority of folks who live here, who are going downtown daily and weekly. And we also, from the survey participants, it was majority of adults over 25 and majority, about 60% Caucasian were the respondents. And when we focused on questions related to traffic, we found that most folks, 96% of the participants, how do they get downtown? They get there by car. That is their primary mode of transport. But we also found that about 27% do walk to downtown of the folks who participated in our survey. And then we had bikers and something that was surprising as well was a number of rideshare folks and carpooling. And we also wanted to get an opinion on roundabouts. And in that upper right corner, you can see majority of folks approve the idea of a roundabout along Del Monte as a method for road traffic calming. and only 15% were disagreed with that approach. We also asked about road diet option, 2 lanes to 4 lanes, and we're quite surprised the 2 lanes edged out the 4 lanes, 59% to 41%. And again, this is from our quick small sampling, but something to look into. Moving on to the landscape category, number 1 priority is drought tolerant landscaping. That was across the board. All folks, it had to be water wise and drought tolerant. And then when you get to tier 2 and tier 3, the next step is to find that balance of California native and looking great all year. And of course, when we get into landscape, things can get subjective. So we did also ask about opinions on design style and design color. And in this community, the results were primarily for mixed design, mixed color, where it's not too formal, not too loose, just right. And then when we asked about what is the number 1 priority for improving streetscapes, landscaping was number 1, followed by, I don't know which is smaller, the screen or my print, followed by a welcome entry, outdoor dining, furnishings, and then finally artwork. All right, so the last thing we asked our survey folks to answer was in 3 words, what is downtown Marina? And from those words, we were able to drop them into a word cloud to see what words were most significant. And geez, when we saw this list, I was like, oh no, this is scary. What is happening? It was a bit alarming at first. And then my sister actually reminded me, she's like, no, that demonstrates the reason for investing in your downtown. This is the downtown experience today. But if you zoom in, there's little words like potential and friendly and welcoming, and that's what we have to build on. So how do we do that? What does that look like? What does that feel like? When looking at a project, I found it very helpful to outline the goals and objectives for the project. And through the research of the Marina, through my wonderful time working in the community, the 3 words that stand out to represent the heart and downtown of the community were diversity, sustainability, and authenticity. And we can do that through delight, wellness, and belonging. And after getting the feedback through the community outreach, we could further define what are the actual activities and things that help support these goals. So for delight and diversity, we have opportunities to eat, sit, and gather. We have opportunities for the celebration of art and culture, and plant communities that are full of color and year-round appeal. On the wellness side, we have an opportunity to design for walkability and multimodal transport, and the reuse and repurposing of materials and resources, and at the same time supporting the access and visibility for the local businesses. And belonging, this is a tough one. It's squishy, it's hard to pin down, but we know one thing's for sure is our climate responsiveness with the salt air and the fog and the wind. That's something that is here, and that's something we can celebrate and be proud of. And also a place that is friendly and safe for all, and big picture still feels like home. So in a culturally and ethnically diverse community, how do you tie all of these pieces together so that it feels so that it is a place of belonging for all people? One of the themes that we are leaning on for form and color is simply sunset at the beach. You have the bold colors, you have the contrasting textures, and the sinuous forms, and sometimes the opportunity to find a treasure along the shore. And again, thank you for sticking with me on this journey. again, what does this look and feel like? This is all words. So when we're looking at the streetscape, there's really the same materials that you'll find in any downtown. There's the paving on the ground, there's the benches and the lighting on one side, there's the plants and the street trees on the other side. There are the activities that fill and engage the space. But all in all, it needs to feel and be unique to the identity of Marina. So I have this little graphic here to help guide us on the next several slides. I have quite a few large collection of imagery. Again, this is high level because we want your input and feedback to try to nail down these specific pieces that help make a unique and vibrant and pedestrian friendly downtown for Marina. And also to help shape a lot of these pieces, what I found speaking with folks in the community is that people are really resourceful and pragmatic and caring. And when we're looking at our goals for authenticity and sustainability, it just made sense to look at the things that were already working and existing in Marina. So the first column has existing natural features between here and the beach. And the second column are existing hardscape materials that are already within the median at on Del Monte Boulevard. The third column is a potential opportunity. Obviously we have Fort Ord, and there's a lot of blight removal and demolition. And so there's a potential here where these materials, once they pass tests for toxicity, these materials could be diverted from the landfill and repurposed as something intentional and beautiful for the downtown Marina. And on the fourth column, we also have existing trees. There's some development projects in the works that may impact existing trees. So there may be potential for either relocating or repurposing the tree and or wood. So in the next series of slides is really a bunch of imageries that are again looking at these four walls of what the streetscape, downtown, median, et cetera, can all look and feel like. These are examples of median improvements, combination of hardscape and planting, opportunities for seating, even in a kind of a tight sidewalk condition, potentially. And these are some examples of repurposed materials. So if you remember the photo of the Fort Ord projects, how it could be reoriented, shaped, cut, and sized and placed to start to create the hardscape and features of the landscape. On the site furnishings, and these are like the products, the trash receptacles, the chairs, the lighting. We had in the in-person meetings, we had an opportunity for folks to vote. And what was more interesting to me than the results was, I'm going to pick this one because it looks like it's the cheapest and it'll get put in, but I want them to do it. I just want them to do it. I want them to do it right away. And I want it to be affordable and low maintenance and welcoming and inviting. So it's more like the thought process behind it I thought was really interesting, where you just have such a resourceful and pragmatic group of citizens who want to get it done, but they want to get it done efficiently and get it done so that it works as well for a long time. So these are just some examples and some of the favorites from the outreach. And then this is just a talking point there, the surf line, MST surf line being proposed for Del Monte. There may be an opportunity for fencing, and if there's a chance to coordinate design or materials with the overall streetscape and median design. And the next series of slides are looking at plant materials, and based on the feedback, it's a mix of formal where you can shear it and loose natives. Everything in this slide in particular is native, and these are all photos of plants performing in the city of, or this slide for sure is plants performing in the city of Marina. And then adding some color and more options for color. And then this is the slide on the last slide, mix of native and non-native. Again, with the thought process of it being low maintenance, look good year round. And then this is the first pass at street trees. We have a lot of existing trees that are in the medians on Del Monte Boulevard and on Reservation. And those healthy, good-looking trees, you know, don't need to mess with those. We can work with those, keep those in place. Mostly the cypress trees. And then opportunities for adding more texture and color in the median exist. And then, but for the street trees, where we're putting a tree in the pavement in these coastal conditions, we're asking the tree to survive surrounded by hardscape. So that's definitely a tree where a native might not be the best solution, where we do want to open up the palette to non-natives just because it's tougher conditions to deal with, surrounded by so much hardscape. And then going back to those goals again, delight, what does that look like? Opportunities for art. That center picture, the interactive art in the center bottom, that was a big favorite in the outreach. If you're wondering what that horseshoe is, that's a photo from Morro Bay, and it's something that I haven't solved yet, but I thought it could be fun to inspire something for Marina, is these little surprising maybe medallion of something special that's placed around downtown. So when you spot it, you know you're in downtown, especially Marina that has such a large downtown. But that's something that could be discussed. Maybe it's not a horseshoe, maybe it's a medallion of some important flower or wildlife. But that's something that could, once you see it, you know you're in downtown. And then another part of belonging is not only reaching culture, a diversity of cultures and ethnicities, but also age groups. In the online survey, we didn't have any kids who marked the survey, but I did have a chance to talk to a couple teenagers at the farmers market, and just to see hey, do you go downtown? And one was said, no, I don't go downtown. And another teenager said, yes, I walk downtown and I go to the ice cream shop. But where can our youth hang out? That's an important question for a lot of cities. So when looking at gathering options, I think downtown should be considered for finding a place for youth, so that they're center, they're visible, they're near the action, and they're near services. It's an opportunity there as well. And then also for, I'll show you in the renderings as we move forward, an area for cultural celebrations in the streetscape. Identity, welcoming entry. These are some sketches harnessing the idea of wind and color and texture, working with maybe natural stone that we see throughout Marina, that's sourced not too far away, integrating it with the idea of windsocks or wind kites, and then through these sinuous forms, there's also opportunity to add light or lettering in different languages, and something that could be it could be a signage, or it could be a detail on a fencing or a wall to help create a sense of place for downtown. And this slide looks at what lighting what lighting could look like in those sorts of situations, in the sinuous forms or in the signage. One comment I heard was, we don't want this to look like Vegas. So how can we get some subtle lighting that has an opportunity to change color by season or event or celebration? And that could be on signage, or it could be on some of the site materials. Okay, so we looked at a lot of pictures, we talked about a lot of words, and now on this plan, it's like, where can some of these installations exist? So our little orange rainbows, let's see, the orange rainbows are our gateway options that say you're entering downtown. If you see a red X, that's an area where there could be a larger zone for gathering and connecting. We have Bill Ring's Corner at the intersection of Reservation and Del Monte. And there's potential areas as well along Del Monte, just for people to hang out, linger, have special events. And the White Stars areas for maybe art installations, cultural celebrations. I know during the Dr. Martin Luther King events, there was a signage placed in the medians, and one of the traffic sign was used along Del Monte. So maybe there's an area for community signage along that road. And then looking at a template idea of what the median and the streetscape could look like. This is just a zoom in. What could that feel like? What's the texture? When we spoke with members of the community and looking at the median, it could be, like I said, we could just put a bunch of plants in there, or we could also think about what is the cost of installing and maintaining plants long-term. Folks didn't want to put plants in and then forget about it. So we wanted to put something that could be relatively easy to maintain, best chance of success. And we found that a balance of hardscape and landscape could help us meet those goals. So building on the sunset at the beach and the sinuous forms and the mortared in place cobble and the integral colored concrete that already exist on Del Monte Boulevard and could remain in place, we could build on that to have a mix of paving and planting, and then the serpentine wall formation through there. That could be something that's built using repurposed materials that are diverted from Fort Ord. So as you create this median, it has a sense of place and it has a story and a history behind the materials and the texture of what you see there. On the streetscape, we're showing that what you're looking at, that's showing about a 13-foot dimension from back of curb to back of sidewalk. So within that space, we could fit about a 6-foot clear walking space, and then on the parkway area, street trees, maybe some landscaping, maybe some seating, and anything else to help bring the scale back to the pedestrian, to help slow down traffic, to help pedestrians feel safe on this street. And that blue sinuous line, that's our cultural highlight. That's an area where, again, we can put pavers, we can put benches, but how do we make it tie to Marina? So that's an area where conceptually the public could get involved, or local artists could get involved, and each one of those sinuous bands along Del Monte could tell a story or tie to a cultural history, or maybe it could be handprints, all sorts of things. But if it's something that's continuous and relevant to the people who live in Marina, that's what that blue line weaving through is intended to be. And here's that same plan view, but in section. You can see we have the mix of planting and hardscape in the median, and then start to see what Del Monte could look like if so much of the right-of-way wasn't dedicated to cars. Okay, this is the slide that Brian really wanted me to have tonight. And this was a quick high-level look at costs, because this information is important to help inform decision-making. And so, like I said, in this version, we assumed 50% landscape, 50% hardscape. And the considerations are for installation, hardscape will cost more than landscape at installation, but then in the long-term maintenance, landscape will cost more to maintain. So these are some really high-level rough numbers and considerations here. And then thank you for sticking with me through all of this. So we had words and photos and sections, and now you can see Del Monte Boulevard today. And hey, what if it was more pedestrian friendly and the traffic slowed down? And then here are a couple more views to see that sinuous landscape versus hardscape in the median. And then a view from the Monterey Trail side, looking back towards the median on the hardscape side. So even though that one's hardscape, and this was intentional just to keep it simple for maintenance and installation, instead of having a bunch of random pockets, just have it continuous. You can still get the feeling of the landscape even on the west side of the median, and it still kind of mimics the mesa along the beach. And then, so that takes me to our final slide. When we think about, again, how do we achieve diversity, sustainability, and authenticity? We can do so by creating a beautiful and safe place for residents and visitors of Marina to linger, to feel at home, to connect with diverse people, both familiar and new, to support local businesses, to walk and move with wellness, and to delight in art, culture, and play. This is our project team. Wanted to share our contact info in case there are any further thoughts. If not, if we don't get a chance to talk to them tonight, this is how you can reach us. And thank you for listening through, I think, the fun part. Kimberly Horn will be up next to walk you through the traffic studies and what that means for Del Monte Boulevard. Unless you want specific questions from me before that.
I kind of would like to have a little bit of time while she's still here and you're here as well. For questions and comments from,
Okay.
should we take it from the floor first or for us first?
Well, so I just wanted to say, you do have members of the public here,
Mm.
and typically the members of the public will have one opportunity to speak on an item. They've seen part of the presentation, but we still have the traffic
Okay.
presentation. So if the commissioners have questions that they would like answered on this first portion of the presentation, and maybe holding the discussion and direction until after the full presentation, and then the public can have an opportunity to address the commission as well after the next presentation.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I think we might have questions.
Yeah, the questions are fine. I just
Yeah.
reminding you
Okay.
that you do have the public here and they'll have one opportunity. So
Well, okay.
yeah.
You guys just get once, huh? You get multiple. It's already 7:15 almost. We're at the time. Okay, so if people are willing to wait until the end, I think that would be best to have it once for the comments from the floor.
Yeah,
And then press, okay.
if that's the public will weigh in, then that's fine. If commissioners want to ask questions about the first part of the presentation while they're fresh in mind, that will work as well.
I believe Commissioner Filton has questions. Go ahead.
Landscaping, you had mentioned the annual maintenance cost. Who would be doing the maintenance? Is that Marina Township or a private company?
So currently it's the city staff, is a city maintenance staff. We do have contract maintenance that does maintenance for some of our assessment districts right now. But outside of that, maintenance is carried out by city staff.
And in this case, would we expect city staff to be doing the maintenance for this?
Yes, I would, it would be my hope that the city staff could be taking this on and owning this maintenance.
So the reason I ask, I live in Monterey Bay Estates, and I pay, every resident pays for landscaping there, which is absolutely non-existent. So I would hate to see another example of that where there's a significant annual cost for maintenance that doesn't get done. And it's not, obviously, the landscaping in Monterey Bay Estates is not done by the township, it's done by some private company. And then, in addition to the landscaping, you had mentioned irrigation, so that's a big concern for two reasons. Many people had lovely lawns, and then there was a drought, and they said, "Oh, you don't get to water," and people lost their lawns, and that was a very expensive loss for these people, and they haven't recovered. They said, "Well, I'm not going to do this anymore." And in my neighborhood, there's a lot of very unattractive, what used to be beautiful lawns, because people just said, well, I'm done with that. How would irrigation be carried out?
To take.
This project would require irrigation to be installed. That's the best method, best practice. And so we've started those conversations, but it would take some investigation. We would need to get power and water, and plant material could be selected so it would be drought tolerant. But even in drought tolerant landscapes, you still want irrigation installed, one for establishment, and then two, if there is a significant series of drought years, so you can turn on water at that point as well.
And is that already factored into the price estimates?
Yes, that was part of the,
And ongoing maintenance of the irrigation systems. I have that at my house and I'm like, boy,
Yes.
this is expensive. I might as well just use my hose.
yes, this is what we were anticipating, was including irrigation.
And the maintenance of the irrigation systems.
Correct.
And lastly, furniture. I'm concerned that that's an opportunity to attract homeless people to be sleeping there, as I see in beautiful downtown Monterey. Has that been given any consideration?
This is an important and sensitive topic for many people in many cities. We did receive a comment from a public participant who did specify a request to not have hostile architecture, is the term. So it's a, and so sorry to divide. That means if you have a bench that does not allow sleeping, that has dividers. So it's a decision of the community. And it's a challenging topic, and it's something that can be considered, but there's lots of different ways to address. There's a lot of different ways needed to address the challenges of our unhoused neighbors. And there's lots of different ways we can address it. And then for site furnishings, it is that balance of activating a space and having eyes on the street, and having it in locations where people feel safe. There's lots of different factors. So I guess I just don't want to say we eliminate furnishing altogether to eliminate that concern. I think it's something that can be addressed on multiple different ways. But it was just because that was a comment that we received, so I wanted to mention it.
Yes, addressing it on multiple approaches isn't working very well and all throughout the entire state of California. So it certainly is a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, does this project include changing the welcome entry
So this,
as you approach that Del Monte Road?
I believe that might be a separate project scope, but there's also an opportunity to have a welcome. So you can have welcome to the city of Marina, and then you have entered downtown Marina. Those can be the same or they can be different. So that could be something to consider. It could go either way.
Well, certainly our welcome entries could use to be revisited. And then lastly, I like your presentation. I like the ideas. I don't know what's going to draw people to that particular strip of road, which usually is just a way to get from A to B. There's not places that people would like to just go and hang out at this time. So all this lovely infrastructure that you would put in place, what would draw somebody to go down and to hang out there essentially?
That's a great question, and similar. It's a combination of things, and we're also looking at this project in phases. So phase one would be just the median by itself, to beautify the median so that there is a sense of place, there is a sense of welcoming, there is a sense of identity and pride for the community. And then the streetscape is something where we looked at it as part of this project because we wanted to make sure that what we were putting in the median would be consistent with future build out. So we were studying that, but it's not to say that all of that would be built at once. There's a lot of work being done on the downtown vitalization specific plan, and that's looking out, not tomorrow, but long term. And so maybe it's just a blueprint for development over time, over the next several years or longer. But our initial effort is really focusing on the medians as phase one.
Okay, I appreciate that clarity. Thank you.
Comments as well. First about the water. Usually from what I understood, most of these new landscape installations were using recycled water. And he laughs.
I
With-
laugh, I laugh because yes, that's the direction we've been going for quite a few years. There is talk of changes, at the state level in the way we address water and, more of an interest to move towards potable reuse.
Okay.
And as, already had kind of initial discussions with Marina Coast Water District, they've said, hey, we're really looking at that this is the way of the future. This is the way we're probably going to be going. And so, does that mean we make a change right now? I would say no, we need to be ready for that. But, when it comes to plumbing the irrigation for the medians, yes, we put purple pipe in so that if recycled water is available, we can use that system for recycled water. There's nothing that says we can't put potable water in the purple pipes, but putting purple pipes in covers us for both potential futures.
Thank you. And one thing that strikes me, I'm sure this covers both parts of the presentation, is that all of the focus is on landscaping in the thoroughfare, but there is no talk of parking, like street parking. All the other downtowns on the Central Coast have actual street, not residential parking available so that you can walk and you can bike from there without parking in front of somebody's house. Any comments?
Yeah, I can comment. I'm not going to be able to necessarily answer the question other than to say that there is the greater downtown vitalization specific planning effort that's going on. What we've brought to you tonight is a more focused subset of that. And, some of that parking, there's questions of on-street parking and off-street parking. For this segment, we're not talking about on-street parking. So unfortunately, that kind of crosses over the right-of-way line. And so I would say, definitely get engaged on the greater downtown vitalization specific plan. We can register that it's a concern,
Okay.
and how is parking being addressed in relation to all this traffic, and, pass that on to planning as a comment from the commission.
And there's a specific downtown revitalization committee, isn't there?
Yes,
I thought there was.
yeah, and I can't speak, knowledgeably to how it's all structured right now with the effort that planning's leading with that. But I think, I want to say there are stuff that's getting scheduled coming to council as well on the greater downtown vitalization plan. So kind of be watching those agendas as well, and some of those items may be hitting the public or the planning commission as it comes forward.
And one quick note about the sample size. As noted, that there is not as much public input as we would like. I know on previously this year, public input, there was quite a large response to the sports park and the parks outreach. I thought that was very successful.
Mhm.
A lot of people dropping by. There was a pretty active, sending out of the flyers and reaching out and getting people to actually show up and provide comments. But a sample size from the farmer's market and a short survey window is less than 100 people is not very representative of the entire city, I would say.
Yeah, and maybe you can speak to our.
This is true. This is not a statistically relevant survey.
Okay.
And we are on an expedited timeline. So that was one of our challenges. In order to advertise, we got to give ourselves more time to advertise. So that would be, if we wanted larger sample sizes, it would just mean more time and additional effort to get the word out. We were on a expedited streamline. Let's keep this moving again with the focus on the Del Monte medians and building on all the outreach. I think there were 3 other surveys going out the same time ours were, between the general plan and the downtown vitalization specific plan. There's a lot going on, so there could also be a little bit of survey burnout. But those are some of the things. And honestly, also going into the farmers market, I was concerned with just world events. I think people are just, there's a lot going on. And if we do want to get out and get more people, it just means more time and more effort. And if we need to do that, then that's what it would require. This is what we could do on the expedited route.
Okay. Any questions?
Your survey indicates reception.
If you could turn on your mic so they can pick it up.
Sorry. I noticed that your surveys of individuals that attended your outreach were receptive to roundabouts. Yet I see these long left turn pockets, and I wonder, those wouldn't really be consistent with roundabouts in your design. And yeah, I don't really see a design showing intersections, just the straight sections of Del Monte.
Oh, we talked about.
I'm talking about landscaping, yeah.
Yeah.
Landscaping of potential intersections that might include roundabouts.
That could be the next step. And then the next design development, we could include roundabouts if we knew that was the direction we wanted to go. Honestly, it wasn't part of our initial effort when we started. It wasn't part of the and then we're just slowly building. So yes, for landscape, we just looked at a sample template section. And then as we get more information on the direction we want to go, we can provide more input on that. With roundabouts, again, same thing, same challenges, balance of maintenance versus install costs, sight lines, hardscape versus landscape, where you do want sight lines, where you don't want sight lines. So those are all things we would work with the traffic engineers on to identify the appropriate landscape treatments in those scenarios.
Thank you.
One more question. It was brought up about the downtown vitalization and the planning commission associated with that. Is that downtown vitalization planning commission working and aware of this and giving input?
Yes, and actually our community development director was planning to be here tonight, but he had a illness in the family and couldn't make it. So yeah, they are following this effort and they want to be aware. He specifically wanted an update on the feedback from the commission tonight, so that they can make sure that they're aware of it and incorporating it where appropriate. In the downtown vitalization specific plan.
Ultimately, my concern is that how much of this work would be throwaway if the planning commission and downtown vitalization was not in alignment or agreement with what is done. I'd hate to see the good work that's being done say, gee, it doesn't fit with our vision and have to be done over again.
Well, I would like to think that they're going to weigh the feedback from the public, from the commission, specifically to this downtown right away and medians, fairly heavily, because this was the forum for getting input on that specific item. The city has committed dollars to the downtown landscaping and the downtown medians as an initial effort to give the community the vision of what the downtown can look like and to generate that interest in the change in the downtown. So the reason that this is being advanced is for that, so that the public can see change in the downtown and they can see progress and then continue that momentum forward as the downtown vitalization plan gets implemented.
So I'm a little bit confused on the terms downtown vitalization and then this Del Monte Boulevard. Are we considering Del Monte Boulevard part of the downtown or the downtown? Because certainly today it's not downtownish at all. It's just a,
Can you bring up the slide that shows the downtown with the orange rainbows and the X's and the stars and yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
It'd be like this whole-
that is the downtown vitalization specific plan area. If we get that feedback, I don't know. Yeah, that one.
so.
So, yeah, that outlined area there, and then Del Monte is highlighted in orange. So Del Monte is in the downtown planning area.
Very good. That adds to clarity. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. I guess we can ask Derek Wu to join us here, make his presentation on the traffic for the downtown. And we're going to look specifically at Del Monte Boulevard. Okay, so Frederick. Okay, and Frederick Venter has joined us remotely, and so if he needs to weigh in on any questions or add anything to the presentation, he's also with Kimley Horn, and so we may hear from him as well.
Good evening, members of the Public Works Commission and everybody attending tonight's meeting. My name is Derek Wu, and I am a project engineer with the consulting firm Kimley Horn. I am here to present the results of our traffic analysis for the Del Monte Medians and Downtown Marina Streetscape project. Again, as Brian mentioned earlier, also here from Kimley Horn is Frederick Venter, who has joined this meeting virtually and will be helping answering questions or providing additional input. Let's see. Okay, that should work. Sorry about that. Okay. So as you saw in the previous presentation by Bianca, the objective of the project is to transform Central Marina into a unique, vibrant, and pet-friendly downtown with opportunities for streetscape and landscape improvements along Del Monte Boulevard. The traffic analysis that Kimley Horn conducted was to determine an optimal Del Monte Boulevard streetscape design to achieve the vision and goals of downtown Marina. And so to answer that question, we will presenting the traffic volumes used in our analysis to review the different Del Monte layout alternatives, such as road diets with signals or roundabouts. 3, share the traffic results and the simulation videos of the different alternatives. And 4, will also conclude with the summary of our findings. So from our analysis between the road diet, signal, and roundabout alternatives, there were a few main takeaways from our traffic study of Del Monte Boulevard. And the first takeaway was that the existing signal at Reservation and Del Monte Boulevard will operate at acceptable level of service for all our scenarios that we looked at. For the signal layout on Del Monte Boulevard, a 2-lane road diet was looked at, and with that alternative, that will operate with, we saw vehicle congestion and queues in the northbound direction during the PM peak hour with just 2 lanes. However, the operations along the corridor do improve for a road diet layout that has 2 northbound travel lanes between Rheindaler and Palm intersections. Similarly, for the roundabout layout, looking at a road diet, 2 travel lanes are needed in both the northbound direction, as well as needing like a multi-lane roundabout design at the Rheindaler and Palm intersections. So for instance, at the Rheindaler, 2 northbound and southbound travel lanes are needed, and at Palm, 2 northbound travel lanes are needed and 1 lane is needed in the southbound direction toward the freeway. So in our traffic analysis, we looked at 2 different sets of traffic volumes along Del Monte. The first set was 2018 traffic counts that were collected in the field. These counts represent pre-COVID conditions, and the 2018 volumes were found to be about 2% higher than recent counts that were collected this year in 2023. The second set of volumes is 2024 traffic forecasts from the regional travel demand model that was developed by AMBAG. AMBAG is the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments. These 2040 volumes are about 20% higher than the 2018 volumes counts, and we use those volumes in our traffic model. The 2040 volumes along Del Monte include the traffic and travel patterns, changes that occur from regional and local growth, such as downtown Marina, and also other future roadway improvements within the region. So this slide here shows the 2018 peak hour traffic volumes along Del Monte Boulevard between the Rhine-Dollar, Palm, and Reservation Road intersections. So the numbers you see on the top in the arrows, inside the arrows, are the northbound and southbound roadway volumes, while the set of numbers on the bottom show the peak hour turning movement at the intersections. So the AM and PM peak commute volumes are shown here with the PM volumes in parentheses. So as you can see during the AM peak, there is a heavy southbound volume heading towards the freeway as you go from Reservation to Palm to Rhine-Dollar intersection. As you see, the volumes increase from about 835 and then increase to about 1,069 vehicles. And also you see at the Rhine-Dollar intersection, there's also a heavy left turn movement of about 492 vehicles during the AM peak that turn onto Del Monte to head onto the freeway. During the PM peak, you see there's a heavy northbound volume exiting the freeway and heading towards Reservation Road. So it starts at about 1365 volumes, but then you kind of see a drop off in through volumes going north toward Reservation, and it ends at like about 955 vehicles as you see some vehicles turn off onto the side streets. However, this kind of northbound volume is heavy. It's a heavy movement through Del Monte during the evening commute. So this next slide here shows the build out 2040 peak hour volumes along Del Monte. And so these volumes represent future build out conditions within Marina and the regional growth from the model. So as you can see during these build out conditions, the traffic volumes will increase compared to 2018, but we will still see similar traffic patterns during the AM and PM commute. They'll still see a heavy southbound volume heading towards the freeway during the AM and heavy northbound volume of vehicles in the PM peak going north. And again, these 2040 volumes were used in our traffic analysis to represent a conservative worst case scenario when looking at the Del Monte Boulevard. This slide here shows the difference in traffic volumes between 2018 and 2040 conditions. Between these two data sets, there is an average of about 20% volume growth between 2018 and 2040 peak traffic. And the peak traffic occurs during the PM times. So the traffic being added in the 2040 scenario accounts for city growth from future downtown, Marina Station development projects, other local developments. It also includes regional growth, and the model does include some regional cut-through traffic along Del Monte. So I think the latest check that we saw in terms of cut-through is about 40 to 50% of throughput goes through Del Monte Reservation to between Salinas and the Monterey Bay area. So for our study, we analyzed the following Del Monte Boulevard roadway layouts based on results from community survey and also input from the recent public workshops. There was community interest in seeing if a road diet and roundabouts would be a feasible option along Del Monte. So the first layout that we analyzed was the existing 4-lane geometry on Del Monte with the existing signals. This layout is the baseline and is the condition if no improvements are made to the roadway at all. The second layout analyzed was keeping the existing signals at Rhine-Dollar, Palm, and Reservation, but converting Del Monte Boulevard into a 2-lane road diet. So a road diet is basically where the number of travel lanes in each direction become reduced or narrowed, and that space is repurposed to provide additional bike, ped, streetscape facilities. In our study, the optimal road diet cross-section is keeping 2 northbound lanes from Rhine-Dollar to Palm and having 1 northbound lane from Palm to Reservation. The southbound direction would have 1 vehicle travel lane. And then finally, the third layout analyzed was installing the road diet and also installing roundabouts at the Rhine-Dollar and Palm intersections. So in our analysis, we found that 1 northbound travel lane would experience congestion and long vehicle queues during the PM peak. Thus, one of the mitigations or recommendations is maintaining 2 northbound travel lanes from Rhine-Dollar to Palm. So this slide here shows the layout of the existing 4-lane road and the cross section of Del Monte Boulevard. Between Rhine-Dollar and Reservation, Del Monte Boulevard has 2 travel lanes in each direction. The sidewalk on the east side of Del Monte is, has some portions of sidewalk, but it's kind of a discontinuous connection. And there are several sections where the sidewalk ends, and there are mixes with driveways and frontages with off-street parking, as you kind of see in the picture here. Also, there is no existing bike lanes or bike access on the street of Del Monte. The west side of Del Monte has the Monterey Rec Trail, and access to the trail is provided by the crosswalks at the signalized intersections. And this slide here shows the proposed road diet layout with the signalized intersections at Rhine-Dollar and Palm in Reservation. In this layout, there are 2 different cross sections. So the section between Rhine-Dollar and Palm that you see in the purple outline proposes a road diet with 2 northbound travel lanes and 1 southbound travel lane. And then the vehicle lanes are narrowed to allow space for protected bike lanes with the striped buffers. You can see in the cross section there. The east side of Del Monte, where the future downtown redevelopment would occur, would be improved with a continuous wide sidewalk and additional space for landscape and streetscape opportunities. And then the existing width of the median in the center of Del Monte would remain, and new landscaping would be planted, as Bianca showed in the previous slides. The section between Palm and Reservation, shown in orange, would transition Del Monte into a 2-lane road diet with 1 travel lane in each direction. And on the east side, there would be space to install a raised buffer median to provide additional separation between the bike lane and the vehicle travel lane. And then each travel lane would be designed to allow and maintain fire access through the corridor. And then finally, the last road layout that was analyzed was the road diet with roundabouts, and those were installed at Rhine-Dollar and Palm. The roadway cross-section along Del Monte in this layout would be the same as the previous slide with the signals, but the 2 intersections would be designed with a multi-lane roundabout to maintain vehicle capacity during the peak hours. So similar to the road diet design, the idea behind the roundabouts is a way to improve bike and ped access, as well as provide a traffic calming effect by slowing vehicle speeds through the corridor. So here's a comparison between the 3 different roadway layouts that we analyzed. Del Monte Road segment we analyzed is a half-mile corridor between Rhine-Dollar and Reservation Road. It is important to note that the proposed road layouts that you see were designed within existing right-of-way and does not encroach into any existing right-of-way for the rail line on the west side. And then here's a comparison slide between the signal and the roundabout between the Rhine-Dollar and Palm intersections. So the optimal roundabout layout is providing 2 northbound and southbound entry lanes at Rhine-Dollar and 2 northbound entry lanes at Palm. It's also important to note that at the intersection of Reservation and Del Monte remains as a signal for each of the scenarios. But this intersection was analyzed with additional bike and ped crossing improvements from the RSTP grant that the city was awarded this year. The improvements at this reservation intersection include a new crosswalk on the south side, curb bulb outs at the corners, and also enhance some bike and ped crossings with the trail access. So the next step in our study after creating the layouts was conducting our traffic analysis to evaluate each layout. again, we use the 2040 AM and PM peak traffic volumes from the AMBAG model, and we created a traffic simulation model of each alternative using a software called VISM. So VISM is a micro simulation modeling program and is the ideal tool to provide a direct apples to apples comparison between a roundabout and signal operations. And so the traffic model we created, allowed us to obtain, metrics including intersection vehicle delay, queues, level of service, roadway travel times, speeds. Also, it gives us opportunity to model in bike, pedestrian, and transit activity that would occur along Del Monte. So this slide here is a summary of the intersection level of service results between the different layouts. So the level of service is defined as a term to qualitatively describe the operating conditions of an intersection using like a ranking scale from A to F. So level service A would represent excellent traffic operations with little to no vehicle delay, while level service F would represents very poor traffic conditions and like gridlock. So the level service standard in the city of Marina is level service D. And then the level service results you see in the orange is the AM peak hour results, while the purple shows the level service during the PM peak hour. So in general, all the roadway options would operate at acceptable level of service during both AM and PM peaks. The Rhine-Dollar intersection would operate at level service B for the signal and roundabout options, while the Palm intersection will operate at varying level service between B, C, and D, depending on which scenario. The reservation signal would operate at level service C and D. And as you can see, the four-lane existing road with signals, would have the best level of service results for vehicle operations. And that's because due to the increased capacity and additional travel lanes compared to the road diet options with signals or roundabouts you see on the bottom. Oops. And then this slide here shows a comparison between the average travel times of vehicles traveling northbound during the peak hour. So the results in orange are the AM peak, and while the purple shows the PM peak. The travel times in the traffic model were measured between the little gold stars you see on the picture, which is between the south leg of Rhine-Dollar and the south leg of Reservation, which is about a half-mile corridor that was measured. So the average travel times for the existing 4-lane road is about 1 minute and 15 seconds. And that was, model results, and that averages out cars that, either get stopped at each red light, or cars, and also factors in cars that go through a full green lights cycle. The road diet with the signal option has average slower travel times, but the road diet with the roundabouts would have travel times very similar to the existing 4-lane road. And this is because roundabouts are yield controlled versus stop controlled, and allow for faster continuous movement, while at a signal cars get stopped completely during a red light. So that's kind of why the results kind of show that. And then the next slide here shows the comparison of travel times going in the southbound direction during the peak hour. So like the previous slide, the travel time results are very similar between the different alternatives. The average travel time for the existing 4-lane road is about 1 minute, 17 seconds. With the road diet with signal option that has a little bit slower travel time, but the road diet with roundabouts would again have travel times very similar to the existing 4-lane road. And so, yeah, that's about 1 minute, 14 minute, 13 seconds. And you can see the speeds as well. That's shown in parentheses along those corridors. So next, what I want to do is to show the videos of the traffic model simulations for each layout option. So for the sake of time, we're only showing the traffic videos during the PM peak hour, since this is when the peak congestion occurs along Del Monte. So here, this video here that I'm playing right now, if I can get it to run, there we go, is the traffic with the existing 4-lane road on Del Monte. So first, this video will start at the Reservation intersection, and then the camera will pan southbound towards the freeway, Highway 1. So now you can see in this existing 4-lane scenario, there's, good level of service, good capacity at the intersection. So there's not too much delay that you can see. You see traffic is flowing pretty freely through the intersections in the corridor. Then here, as we get to the Ryan Dollar intersection, I mean, you can see like the traffic that comes off from the freeway, and then there's platoons of vehicles that queue up at the signals, and but not very many operation issues for vehicles going through this corridor with the 4-lane. And then at the bottom is kind of the existing cross section again that we showed earlier. Okay, so the next video I'm going to play here is a video of the traffic that would be experienced if Del Monte was converted into a 2-lane road diet for the entire corridor. So 1 travel lane in each direction. So we'll start at Reservation intersection again and pan towards the freeway. So as we approach the Palm intersection with 1 northbound travel lane, it's a little bit hard to see from my view, but in the video there shows a good amount of heavy northbound volume coming from the freeway and long queues that are also contributed to the lane drop from 2 to 1 lane right after the Rhine-Dollar intersection. And so the delay in queue results that we saw from this scenario kind of indicated that 2 northbound travel lanes may be needed between Rhine-Dollar and Palm to serve the PM peak traffic during that scenario. Okay. And then similarly, we played the scenario again, 2-lane road diet through the entire corridor, but with roundabouts at Rhine-Dollar and Palm. So as we pan over to the Rhine-Dollar and Palm intersections, we kind of see a very similar congestion going northbound with just 1 travel lane. The queues start to spill back, and you can see along the Palm approach, there's with the continuous stream of cars going northbound, there's little gaps for the people on the side street to be able to enter and go through the roundabout. And as you continue along Del Monte, there you can see the queues that kind of spill back into the Rhine-Dollar intersection. You can see though that the queues continue to move, like it doesn't like stack up compared to like a signal would, because the yield control at the roundabouts allow for the cars to continuously move and edge their way forward, going through the corridor. So, but again, like with the queuing that we saw between this section, looking at potential again that having 2 northbound lanes between Rhine-Dollar and Palm would better serve during that PM scenario and the commute time. Okay, so then the next video here is showing the traffic that would, with the proposed road diet along Del Monte, having the 2 northbound travel lanes between Palm and the Rhine-Dollar intersections. So compared to the previous 2 videos we saw, the northbound traffic flows much better. There's less queues that stack up, and there's more throughput and capacity along Del Monte along that section. And this is with the signals at both intersections. So yeah, in that last shot you see there, there's, you don't see the long queues that the single northbound lane had previously. And then finally, the last video here is the roundabout option with 2 northbound travel lanes between Rhine and Palm, and single lanes in the other direction. And so again, with this alternative and layout, we have better throughput and vehicle operations through that section, but also kind of maintaining, controlled speeds through the corridor with the roundabout intersections, and so you can kind of see that here, better throughput for all the legs, and gaps for everybody to maneuver where they need to go. So again, we also ran videos during the AM peak hour as well, but in terms of like the comparison between AM and PM, you don't see as much of a congestion or queuing episodes that the PM peak shows in terms of congestion, that when we looked at the analysis. Okay, so to conclude and kind of summarize our findings from the traffic analysis, this table here kind of again compares the level of service between the various road layouts and at the Rhine and Palm intersections. As mentioned earlier, having a two-lane road diet through the entire corridor would result in congestion and some level of service failure for the roundabout and signal option during the PM peak. So I have highlighted in orange there. So therefore, with the recommended road diet layout would be to have 2 northbound travel lanes from Palm and Rheindaler and 1 southbound lane, which would yield acceptable level of service operations along the corridor. This other table here also again compares the vehicle queuing between the various road layouts at Rheindaler and Palm. Again, just having a 2-lane road diet through the entire corridor would have some queuing issues during the roundabout and also at the signal option. And so again, recommending having 2 northbound travel lanes from Rheindaler to Palm would kind of address that situation there. And then finally, this qualitative matrix that we have here kind of gives a comparison between the multimodal access and safety for bikes, pedestrians, transit, and also fire access. So under the existing 4-lane road, in general, there is kind of a poor bike and pedestrian mobility compared to the other options, since there are no bike lanes on Del Monte Boulevard and the existing sidewalk connection is discontinuous along the corridor. So with the 2-lane road diet, although some vehicle traffic operations show congestion during the PM peak hour, the road layout with signals or roundabout would improve multimodal safety, improve bike mobility, and improve pedestrian mobility. With a road diet with 2 northbound travel lanes and 1 southbound travel lane, vehicle operations would also be acceptable level service wise, and the road layout would again improve multimodal safety, improve bike mobility, and improve pedestrian mobility. Between a signal and a roundabout option, the roundabouts would provide a little bit better bike and ped mobility. And this is because the pedestrian crossings at a roundabout are designed to be shorter and are 2-stage crossings instead of a single stage crossing across the whole intersection. So in general, peds are more visible and less exposed to oncoming traffic with the roundabout at a roundabout intersection compared to a crosswalk at a signal. So that's kind of a little bit of distinction between, if you see the column about pedestrian mobility between roundabout and signal options. And again, the last column in terms of transit and fire access, all these alternatives would be able to maintain fire and transit access through the corridor. And so let's see, there's one more. Ooh, one more. Yeah, so again, so this is the final slide that I had here and kind of summarizes our major findings from our traffic study. And so if you had any questions that me and Frederick could help address, have an open discussion. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And commissioners, you've seen a lot of data and a lot of talk of level of service and traffic volumes and stuff. A lot of that analysis that was presented was focused on the automobiles and being able to accommodate them, but just keeping in mind that what drove that road diet was the allocation of more of that roadway space to pedestrians and bicycles. And so, you know, that was kind of the reason for going into that analysis. You know, when it talks about level of service D, and you saw some of that in the simulations, that's a level of service D in the PM peak traffic hour. That is the worst case scenario in 2040. And so, you know, we're seeing kind of there is some effect to allocating some of that more to the pedestrians and bicycles, but also at the same time, we're trying to create a more downtown environment that encourages pedestrian and bicycle interactions. With that, I just wanted to kind of leave you with that before you dive into the questions. So. If you'd like to, you could take questions from the public or comments from the public.
Hi, good evening, Grace Silva Santella. I can understand why you probably have a little bit of confusion tonight, because I do too. I fortunately was able to get the staff report a couple hours ago and gave myself a little bit of time to look at it. Your agenda item says a presentation of the downtown landscaping, streetscape, and road diet and providing input. But this is really specific to Del Monte Avenue. And I served on the most recent downtown specific vitalization plan committee that no longer exists. We did our work and passed it on. And you were shown a schematic of the downtown area, but the downtown area is really broken into many different definitions. And there's the core, which is really a lot of Reservation Road. What you're talking about here right now isn't necessarily the core. So I just wanted to hope that helps give you a little clarification. So I've got a few comments and questions to make. Some of it is not going to be relative to what you heard tonight. It's going to be relative to what was in your packet. Yeah, good luck on that one for me. Maybe my husband will let me speak for 3 minutes in his place. The bike lane on Del Monte, on the southbound Del Monte, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What happens, let me read my things here. What happens on the north side of Del Monte and Reservation Road? Do bicyclists move back onto the rec trail at some point? Or will this bike lane be for south and northbound? What happens at Palm and Del Monte with the proposed changes to the rec trail that will be happening along Marina Drive because of the surf bus line? What happens at the underpass when the bicyclists and pedestrians can no longer cross because of changes of the surf bus line? I think the southbound bike lane needs to be completely reconsidered. That is on the schematic there. Why are there no tree plantings shown for the west side of Del Monte Avenue between the rec trail and the road? This is a barren, unpleasant stretch of road of pedestrian, and we see a lot of pedestrians who walk that rec trail. The plan shows no trees along there, but it shows it on the east side. If we're showing proposed tree plantings for Del Monte Avenue on the east side, we should be allowing for the same environment for pedestrians on the west side. The buffer for the bike lanes in one slide, it's showing it as just striped lines, but in another slide, it's showing it as raised areas. I would urge you to make a requirement that they be what's called protected bike lanes, which would require physical barriers such as plastic bollards or planters to make it feel safer for bicyclists. One of the biggest challenges for pedestrians, and I walk in the area a lot, are left and right-hand turn lanes. Are left and right-hand turn lanes going to be eliminated? The budget, I think the budget's not realistic for maintenance. I have a whole breakdown. I'd be happy to send it to you as I just think $30,000 at the highest is not enough for maintenance. I urge you to send this to the Marina Tree Committee for their input about tree and landscape. The plant list, there's places where native belong in a habitat and a nature reserve like Point Lobos, Elkhorn Slough, Loch Padden Park. And then there are places that we need to be sure that plants are of a attractive year-round public aesthetic. I was glad to hear that the survey responses talked about wanting plants that looked good all year round. I think it's unrealistic to ever consider turning off irrigation. Low water plantings and drought tolerant plantings still need regular irrigation in the summertime. I was for 40 years a professional landscape gardener. Plans for pedestrian crossings in addition to what currently exists. I've observed people trying to cross from the west side of Del Monte over to the east side in between Palm and Reservation. Are there any plans for cutting through there? And to northbound to Palm I understand why, because I see a lot of people who live on the west side and on the right side of Palm exiting there. But the question is, when those people come back out to go south, they're going to hit one lane. So I think there needs to be a reconsideration of just one lane from south to Rain Dollar. I know I exceeded 3 minutes. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You were pretty close.
I'm sorry?
You were pretty close.
Good evening. Tonight I'll be speaking as an individual, not as an elected official, but my name is Bruce Delgado. And I thought it was interesting that the level of service on the roundabouts with two northbound lanes between Rain Dollar and Palm weren't as good as the signal, but the travel time was less. And I think some people would think what they want is to get from point A to point B the quickest. So in my mind, intuitively, level of service is better if the travel time is less. So I thought that was an interesting contradiction, that you can get from Rain Dollar to Reservation faster with the roundabouts, but the level of service at peak time northbound is worse than it is with the signal. So a little contradiction there, but I appreciate what the Public Works Director said, that this really was driven more by not how to be more auto-centric, but how to be less auto-centric. So how do we change the road diet to benefit peds and cyclists? So there has to be a little bit of give there if necessary. One thing that didn't come up tonight, if there were business owners who had brick and mortar, like hair salons or such, they would want to know what effect this would have on the economy. And so when I think about that, I think about stopping to shop. Which option is going to have the most people stopping to shop? And sometimes we hear that the faster you go through a town, the less you stop. But the slower you go, the broader your vision, the more you see and the more ideas you get to stop and shop, essentially. So I think the economy is a good piece of this overall discussion, although it's not really on the agenda tonight. And I think that so much work was done on landscaping for Fort Ord roads like Imjin Parkway and Second Avenue, et cetera, at the Fort Ord base reuse process, that there was a $500,000 spent on urban design guidelines. And we're so close to Imjin Parkway and Second Avenue in Marina that I think we should not ignore that document, because it had all of the same considerations that we might think of here tonight as far as traveling on cars and bikes and peds and natives versus non-natives and all of that. And it's relevant to the city because many of the roads in that document are city roads. And so it makes sense to think similarly where appropriate. Thank you.
Went over the design plan and then talked about the trees. And we spent quite a bit of time that encouraging the approved.
I have a number of thoughts. I wish they were in better order. For the traffic person, the software model. Does the software model traffic that has to wait more than one red light? And if so, in these peak situations, how many lights would traffic have to wait? I approach a red light, it's red.
Mhm.
And I'm in the queue and I can't go through that red light. I have to wait one or more red lights. Does your software model that? And
Yes, it does. Yeah, it can model that. Yeah.
did we have that occurrence in 2040 in any of the examples that are given, the three different scenarios?
Under the analysis, no, that was not present during when we ran the
Did not occur.
Did not occur. You do see at going northbound between Palm and Rhinedollar, you do see the queues do get to the intersection. However, there is throughput through that section with the queues that you see.
Okay, well, I'm very pleased to hear that there's not multiple lights in order to get through any of the intersections.
Mhm.
What is, I don't know if you're the right person, but you're the one that studied the traffic, so hopefully you're the correct person. What's the reason for the difference in traffic volume between southbound and northbound, where only one southbound is required and two northbound? I mean, you would think people go one way and then they come back and go the other way, the similar volume, but apparently there's sufficient difference between the two volumes that an entire lane is not necessary.
Right. Let's see. If Frederick is on, I think he might be able to help address that question in terms of why, we saw that difference between northbound and southbound.
Is he on?
Eric, if I may, this is Frederick. Yep. So, Commissioner, you're absolutely correct that it should be about the same back and forth. But we do see a lot of times on city networks there is a 60-40 split on those occurrences, right? The main reason is in the morning, there's a lot of people that actually work half day or people that work different hours. I think also a lot of people in the hospitality industry start earlier shifts in the morning, so their shifts are spread out more. We actually more recently or after COVID, we see that the AM trips have decreased a good 10-15% from what they were in 2018, whereas the PM peak hour trips are staying about the same compared to what they were in 2018. People have made since COVID some tremendous travel changes and commute pattern changes and how they commute. That would probably be the main reason. It's just the characteristics of start times and end times and how people work. Remember in the afternoon, especially earlier in the afternoon, or later in the afternoon, there's also school activities. Although I can say that's more in the morning. as well. But the main reason is I would say just the type of worker and the type of trips that we see that occurs during the peak hour or off peak hour.
Thank you. So, ultimately, I'm moving towards a large concern of any instance where there's one lane. What happens when there's a traffic accident and there's only one lane? This is a major thoroughfare to get to the highways. What happens? Or if there's maintenance, or if there's a car that breaks down.
I think you will see that the cross section that Derek showed you has about 20 feet of right of way between curb. That's with only one lane in either direction. That 20 feet, a car is about 6 feet wide, and a truck and a bus is about 11 feet wide. You know, so if a car breaks down, it can pull over into that striped shoulder, right? And if there's an emergency, the fire truck or an ambulance could still pass by, or vehicles could pull over into that sort of striped median lane, and emergency vehicles can pass. So I feel comfortable that still having even if it's one lane striped, the width is ample so that we can manage emergency situations.
Thank you for that input. In your presentation, you had mentioned some percentages of cut through. Can you explain what cut through is and what refresh what that percentage was? It was a high number. I was surprised.
Yeah, so the cut through percentages that I said in the presentation is about 40 to 50% along Del Monte that cut through the city
So
for
what does
regional
that
travel.
mean? I'm not clear on what that means, but it sounds terrible.
So you're absolutely correct. It's terrible. Okay. I think Brian said right in the beginning of the before we started the presentation, there is a large commute in the morning from Salinas and the Salinas Valley to the Monterey Peninsula. And the three corridors that's available right now is Highway 68, Emgen, and Reservation Del Monte. We know that Highway 68 is congested. Emgen is also congested, and then a Reservation in Del Monte is still running sort of okay, if I can put it that way. So what cut through traffic means is that it's traffic that runs through the city's network that doesn't have an origin or a destination within the city. They just use the city's road network to get from Salinas to the Monterey Peninsula.
Okay.
And
That's
I can
different than what I
maybe
thought it
share.
was.
Yeah. We actually did very similar counts back in, it must have been 2012, 2014 when we started the Emgen study. And at that stage, we had 55% of the traffic on Emgen Parkway was cut through traffic, right?
I'm not surprised. Good. Well, I appreciate the definition of cut through because I thought it was something else. I thought it was people avoiding the main thoroughfares and using the secondary roads because of congestion. So I'm glad that it's not that. Are the current signals along this corridor, are they smart lights or just timed lights?
So they do have detection cameras on them, so they will pick up the side traffic on them, but it still favors the main through traffic, which is going to be the volume of it. It'll detect when there are vehicles waiting on the side streets, and then anytime there's a fault in the signal, there's a timing that it will revert to, and then it wouldn't be using that detection technology until a technician gets out there and addresses whatever problem is in the signal.
But overwhelmingly, currently, it does have some level of intelligence.
It does have camera detection. Yeah,
Okay.
it's actuated.
Is there room for improvement in that? Is there better technology that might allow traffic to flow?
Well, we don't have our signals interconnected. you know, so as far as timing, what we call a green wave, and sequencing the signals so that it keeps the traffic on the main routes traveling with the minimum delay. So, you know, there are opportunities for that.
Okay.
If I just may add something, Brian, to that. So you know, the signals are great for getting traffic moving, right? But what happens if I'm traveling down Del Monte and I catch all the signals green, I'm probably driving 55 miles an hour down the corridor. That is not an ideal speed in any city, right? So the challenge is you can make the signals work great for cars, but you really impact safety tremendously by allowing for higher speeds. So the main objective must be to still manage throughput, but at a much lower speed so that you can accommodate the other modes, and especially think about pedestrians and bicycles and safety for all, and even safety for cars in a far better manner.
That's good input. So then I question the premise. Where is the demand for bicycling and pedestrians in this particular corridor? We're trying to sacrifice in each of the solutions. Every one is less desirable as a level of service, not by my calculations, but by your own calculations, than the existing structure is to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists, but I don't know that there's currently demand. And then the lady from the public had also presented quite a number of challenges that the new solutions might present that would eliminate the benefit that you're trying to accomplish by making it difficult, especially where the circles are roundabouts in order to cross those roads.
So, you know, I guess I want to kind of answer it in context of a downtown, a vibrant downtown where you have businesses and residents and a higher pedestrian traffic in the downtown. You know, it's moving at a slower speed as a pedestrian. You're already out of a car. You're walking past businesses. You're probably more likely to stop in when you see something of interest. You know, it contributes to the commerce in the downtown and a more vibrant, walkable community. You know, as you're driving by in a car, you might see something of interest, might lodge it in your mind that you might stop there someday. But you're also weighing, you know, the time it's going to take for you to find a parking space and for you to actually get to that location. So, you know, and somewhere in between that is the bicycles. And you know, and I don't know if Frederick, if you can help characterize kind of, you know, what the goal is in downtowns as far as, you know, making it accessible.
Well, I could understand that on reservation, but in this corridor, I don't
So-
see businesses that attract people.
Yeah,
to
you don't
stop
see,
and-
you don't see them now, but that's the point of the downtown vitalization plan, specific plan, is the city moving in the direction of businesses moving in that are more fronting the streets as opposed to the strip mall with the big parking lot out front, and which we do have on reservation now. And yeah, so it is really a vision for something in the future that will be different, as opposed to saying what we have there on Del Monte right now is static.
And
Okay.
then Brian, if I may add a little bit, right? So there is research that shows that if we provide a multimodal connectivity along a corridor, that it creates a vibrancy, you know, for better interaction for businesses along that corridor. There's also research, and we can share that with the city, that shows once you add bike lanes to a corridor, that there's an economic advantage to businesses along the corridor. And then there's this old story: if you build it, they come, right? So if I have my kids and I want to go buy an ice cream, I'm not going to ride my bike with my kids right now down Del Monte. If I have a protected class 4 bike lane, I feel far more open to taking my kids and taking our bikes and going buying an ice cream somewhere down the corridor. That's the also there is research done that shows that the provision of the bicycle infrastructure and taking it from a class 3 to a class 2 to a class 4, right? Class 4 is the one with the protected, and where there's total separation, you will have more riders on that bicycle facility if you provide the right bicycle infrastructure.
Well, I'm very concerned about the people that go to work and come home from work. If their level of service is decreased and they're spending more time on this road trying to get to work or home from work, it's gonna add frustration, and more frustrated drivers equal more accidents is my concern.
And just a reminder that half of those people are passing through Marina.
All the more reason to be more frustrated. That's the
Can I-
conclusion.
Can I say something on this whole cut through item, right? So
Absolutely.
I think that currently, IMGN only has the one lane in each direction between a reservation and up to about IMGN Road, right? The city's busy with, we're going to probably start construction one of these days with making that a 4-lane facility with a couple of roundabouts. So we're going to open up IMGN a little bit more for capacity, right? So I'm hoping once that happens, that some of the traffic that uses Del Monte and reservation may decide to stay on IMGN. Granted, the bottleneck is probably still on Highway 1 for, once you get to Highway 1 and you go southbound towards Monterey. But I'm also relying on, if we do the downtown plan, if we do the revitalization, if we put these roundabouts in and we still have progression and we make it not a speedway for the cut-through traffic, that they will reconsider taking this route, and it really can become a Marina Street only, right, for Marina residents, and that revitalization for the land uses along that corridor starts to happen as well.
Yes, I've been a bike rider for many years, and I commuted to work in Marina for 20 years. And part of the time I commuted for a year and a half from Seaside on the the bike trail along the coast. And I just want to comment that I'm really happy to see the direction. Although I rode my bike everywhere in Marina, I never drove it on my bike on reservation or Del Monte. That is a death trap. And if we're going to have truly revitalized downtown, we need safe, protected bicycle and pedestrian routes on Del Monte and reservation.
Thank you. I have a couple comments. I agree they do need better bicycle access on both sides of the downtown. Quick question about the Second Avenue extension. It's not coming up in the plans. It's crossing, doesn't it cross at Del Monte? How far does that go? It's not on any of the plans.
So that is planned when it goes through, going from where the off-ramp is on the northbound there at the off-ramp. And then it will connect over to Second Avenue at the dunes. So it would be at the very southern end of the Del Monte Boulevard.
So people coming directly off of the highway can go onto that before they hit Rhinelander? Is that,
They would have the option to get on the Del Monte extension and head south. Yes, once they got to the end of the ramp.
Or if they wanted to start from Second Avenue, they can also enter Highway 1?
They could get on Highway 1 South at that intersection on the south end of Del Monte Boulevard.
Okay,
Yes. Mhm.
okay.
I think it's going to look something like Rhinedollar. If you want to imagine it, it's going to be an intersection very much like Rhinedollar, right? Just another
Okay.
one further south.
Okay. Okay, and then that would be a signal, no roundabout or anything, correct?
We've looked at both. The initial improvement, we looked at doing a traffic signal because it doesn't encroach on Caltrans right away like
Okay.
the roundabout does. If we do go for the roundabout, then that adds a considerable amount of complexity and time to that extension.
Okay.
But we've looked at both of them.
I think I have one more question. I think you touched on a little bit on emergency response because the fire department and police department is that Palm? It's not Palm.
Yes, at
It's not
Palm.
Palm.
Mhm.
And so any of these scenarios, they don't impact the response times?
Well, I don't know if maybe the traffic engineers can weigh in. I don't know that we looked at compared now versus each of those scenarios, but I don't know, Frederick, just kind of general characterization. Would we see any of those scenarios that would impact the response times more than others, or?
No, Brian, I don't think so, because the at the roundabouts the traffic will move through, right, and they will clear the space for the fire trucks. And then like we said, along the corridor, so along the segments, the vehicles have space to pull over and the fire truck or ambulance can pass them. So I think no real difference in fire response times and no impact to fire response times.
Okay. And on the assessments, on your basic numbers using the AMBAG model for 2040, does that actually include the CSUMB growth as well?
It's a regional model, so it takes into account planned development like Marina Station north of the city, any of those developments that are planned within the communities in the Bay Area. There are developments in Seaside, their Campus Town, their light fighter. What is it? I don't know, do they call it Light Fighter Village? Our main entrance
I
in
forget what it's
Campus
called,
Town
yeah,
or other
okay.
developments. We have the Dunes, Sea Haven and
I
Marina
think it's
Station that are
industrial.
moving towards build out. So it's looking at, all those planned growth areas in the region and kind of
Campus
projecting.
itself is planning on a certain percentage of growth, which is more than 20%.
Yeah.
The
So
number of students, faculty, support staff, everything, so.
yeah. So Frederick, I don't know if you delve into the numbers a little bit more. I mean, even though CSUMB projects a 20% growth, they are doing a lot of traffic demand management on the campus and active programs to encourage other forms of transportation. They also have a fairly substantial housing in their East Campus area. So they're, by housing people on campus and near campus, they're reducing the trips from farther away.
Yep, yep. Brian's correct. I think I don't want to add anything.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Okay. I thank you, commissioners and everybody here in the public that commented. This will be coming to city council next. We're planning on December 5th. I would say, send your comments in. If you have more lengthy comments, things that come to you when you wake up in the middle of the night and you've just remembered something. But by all means, send them to Public Works. Do we establish an email for this project or? No? Okay. So you can send it to Michelle or myself. bmcminn@cityofmarina.org. And we'll make sure that they get incorporated in considerations that are coming forward. to city council on the 5th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Um,
First time to do this. Do I just call the meeting adjourned? Yeah. Okay,
If the commissioners have no reports on any other things,
no, I don't think so. No more correspondence? Okay,
No.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.